can't believe I'm making this video, but my problem is I realized that this video needs to exist, and therefore somebody needs to make it. I certainly don't need to give you guys any backstory on this situation. You already know it because it's day 5 of this. But I do want to clarify before we get into this video my own position on this situation. First off, I am not in any way excusing James Charles' behavior. In fact, in this video, I'm really not even going to touch on James Charles as a person. Phrasing. At this point, I think enough people have already had the conversation about James Charles' predatory behavior, and I don't care in the slightest bit about vitamin drama. That is the only thing that I cared about from day one, and I think a lot of us are on the same page with that. But the reason I'm making this video is that I have concern for us, for the community, as far as the repercussions that I'm seeing. Those of you that are subscribed to me, you already know that balance is something that is very, very critical to my life. I talk a lot about kind of walking the middle path, even though I really don't ascribe to any philosophy associated with that. I really believe that if you're going to listen to one opinion, you should always listen to the opposing opinion so that you can be informed. And this doesn't mean so you just stay in the middle. It means so that you can say, okay, well, now that I've seen both sides, I think this side is right. So in this video, I'm hoping to keep things simple. I want to raise 2 concerns that I really haven't seen anybody else address. And my end argument on this is why we should move on in the community from talking about this. My first point is that I have concern about the end repercussions of this situation on the LGBTQIA community. Now, of course, I am a part of that community, even though I feel kind of distantly, since really I'm Demi. I know some people view it as a Tumblr meme, but that is genuinely how I feel. And, I can count the number of people I've dated in my life. On one hand, a one-night stand to me is poorly constructed furniture, but I'm still in the community. And that means I see that the world is not as progressive as a lot of people seem to think. And I understand how you could start thinking that. You know, if you're in a city in America, chances are things around you are very progressive. People around you who come out are probably celebrated. I got a harsh reality check for you in that is not the reality of the entire world. Whether you're in rural America, which is absolutely not caught up, or certain places in the rest of the world, you cannot come out of the closet. And what's really, really unfortunate about this situation is that the stereotype of the predatory gay individual is a very strong reason for homophobia in certain areas. And again, I'm not justifying anything about that. I think it's wrong, but I think that overemphasizing it as we currently are is putting a very negative stigma right back onto that community who's had to fight so hard to not have that. The reality absolutely is, and I tell you this because again, I know this community. For most of us in this community, if we see any of that nonsense, we call you out. And again, as much as this video is about James Charles, I also want it to not be about James Charles because he's kind of an exception to the rule. People gave him a pass because of his power that he had for so long, but that's not the way it is in the rest of the community. So I think that this situation could easily be ammunition for people who are homophobic in 2019 because it does exist. I want to give you some examples to illustrate why I have these concerns, and I hate to put this one out in the public eye because it's something that I don't understand why I deal with in the first place. But I'm very frequently asked in person and in my comment section if I'm transgender. This is something that nobody should ever be asked. It's quite frankly not anybody's business. Is it simply the act of wearing a wig that triggers somebody to be afraid that somebody is trying to, and I quote, deceive them? Because of the way in which I've been asked these questions and because of the many times I've had to delete these comments because you use the derogatory T word, it's really hard for me to ignore that this is very blatant transphobia. And, again, I realize this kind of seems to be segueing off from the topic, but this is a real thing. Homophobia is a real thing. And as long as we are making such a statement out of the problematic people that exist in any population, when they become the example, the innocent people in the community also end up suffering. I guess bottom line with this entire concern is that I feel like we're feeding people who have deeply rooted homophobia by overemphasizing this very small subset of people, who happens to include James Charles, who are predatory. Predatory individuals exist in every population. To overemphasize one in this community, which is already marginalized, to me is making the entire community look bad. And I worry that now, because of this, people in this community are going to be lumped into this problem. So, again, the point of this video is absolutely not to defend James Charles, nor is it to figure out the solution for James Charles, but rather to say it's a problem for us to continue excessively in this conversation. We need to recognize it, acknowledge its problematic behavior, and let it go so that it doesn't end up blown out of proportion by the wrong people. My second point in this video is that I am concerned for mental health. Now, if I'm being honest with you, there is a portion of me that is concerned for James Charles' mental health. I can't shake myself from it. It's been going on for too long at this point, and I just hope that he has good counselors and is able to work through this. I hate to be that person who brings up their psychology studies, but at the same time, I didn't study psychology that long ago, and I could tell you that we never once had the conversation about internet repercussions, at least not to this level. We did talk about bullying via private messages, but never millions and millions of people ganging up on a 19-year-old and what possible repercussions there could be for that. Now again, I don't want to make this video about James Charles, but it is something that I think is very hard for me to ignore. And yet I know that in saying that, I'm probably going to have a couple of people say, oh, you're defending his problematic nature, which I just don't understand how anybody can claim that when you're just trying to say, I'm concerned for somebody who is a human being on this planet. The fact that that's something you're not allowed to say in this moment is really my emphasis with this point, because I'm worried about the mental health of everybody. And back to what I was saying with the field of psychology, this is something that is so new to us that we don't really know what the end repercussions of this are. We have no idea how this is affecting not only the individuals involved, but all of us as well. I tend to lean towards thinking it's probably pretty darn toxic. I bet you that for a lot of people who are highly invested in this drama, there are aspects of their lives that are currently being neglected to be replaced with this knowledge about horrible things somebody has done that has absolutely no relevancy to their lives. I know that what I'm about to say could come off as a little hippy-dippy, but focusing so much on negativity doesn't bring positivity to your life. You really do get back the energy that you put out to the world, and that's my concern with all of this. The amount of time that people are spending invested in this kid and drama that doesn't even belong to them in the slightest stretch. How can I not be concerned about that? I mean, it seems to me that exams are coming up for an awful lot of people, and right now I suspect some people know more about James Charles than the material for their exams. So I could really get into this conversation of why are people allowing this distraction to be so consuming. I tend to think that it's most likely because as long as we focus our attention on somebody else's downfall, somebody else's worse problems than our own, then we can neglect our own skeletons in our closet. And the truth is, every person on this planet has skeletons in their closet, and the sooner you deal with them, the better your life will be. As long as you're out here, again, dealing with nonsense that doesn't belong to you, are you just deflecting? All this thinking I did, and I don't really know how to end this video, so I just want to say thank you to those of you who stayed to the end. I'm sure I'll have to deal with some portion of people who didn't, but thank you for listening. Kind of feel like we don't actually say that often in this world, but I genuinely appreciate you listening to my opinion. Please feel free to comment any thoughts that you may have as well. And I hope you guys have a truly wonderful week. See you guys next time.